The invitation caught the morning light like it was trying too damn hard. Margaret Maggie Thompson sat at her Formica kitchen table, the same one she'd bought at a yard sale in 1987 for $15, and stared at the cream-colored envelope that had arrived yesterday. She hadn't opened it yet. Didn't need to. The embossed gold lettering told her everything. Jessica and Brandon. A love story worth celebrating. A love story, Jesus. Maggie's fingers traced the raised lettering. Even the paper felt expensive, thick and textured like those fancy stores downtown where they wrap your purchase in tissue paper you're supposed to save. She did the math automatically, a habit from 34 years teaching 4th grade, where she'd counted everything from crayons to field trip dollars. These invitations probably ran $15 a pop, maybe 20 if her daughter had splurged on the calligraphy. For a piece of paper, people would glance at once and toss in a drawer. The kitchen smelled like black coffee and the faint ghost of last night's Stouffer's lasagna. Outside the window, Portland's morning fog rolled in from the harbor, blurring the edges of her neighbor's chain-link fence. Maggie wore David's old flannel shirt, the red and black one he'd worn every Saturday for 10 years until his heart gave out 5 years ago this November. She'd washed it so many times the fabric had gone soft as skin. She picked up the envelope. Hefty. Probably had one of those tissue paper inserts. Maybe a map to the venue. RSVP card with a stamped return envelope. The whole production. Maggie thought about her own wedding invitation, 36 years ago. Cardstock from Paper Source, printed at Kinko's for $47.50 total. They'd gotten married at City Hall with 2 witnesses they'd grabbed from the waiting room. Strangers who'd wished them luck and then disappeared back into their own lives. The whole thing cost $93, including the marriage license and the discount bouquet David bought from the grocery store. They'd been married 31 years before the heart attack took him on a Tuesday afternoon, halfway through his bike ride home from work. The invitation sat there, mocking her with its weight. Maggie finally slid her finger under the flap, carefully, because even now she couldn't bring herself to tear nice things, and pulled out the contents. The main invitation, printed on cardstock so thick it could probably stop a bullet. Tissue paper insert, called it. A details card listing accommodations at the Marriott Harbor View, $289 per night, she checked online. An RSVP card with, pre-stamped return envelope, and a handwritten note on cream-colored stationery, Jessica's looping handwriting in gold ink. Mom, I know this is a lot, but this is our moment to shine. Dad would have wanted me to have the wedding of my dreams. Can we talk about your contribution? Thinking $350,000 would cover my half of the expenses. Love you so much, Jess. $350,000. Maggie read it again, certain she'd misunderstood. Maybe it was $35,000? A typo? Number $350,000. For her half of the expenses. Maggie set the note down and pressed her palms flat against the table, feeling the decades-old Formica cool against her skin. Her hands looked old suddenly, veiny and spotted, calloused from her current gig at Fletcher's flower shop downtown. She worked 30 hours a week arranging bouquets for weddings and funerals, usually mixing up the baby's breath because her eyes weren't what they used to be. She made $13.50 an hour. $350,000 would take her. She did the math slowly, carefully. Approximately 25,963 hours to earn. Before taxes. Maggie looked at the wall above her sink, where photos hung in mismatched frames, the gallery of her life. Jessica at 6, missing her front teeth, grinning in her Halloween costume, a dollar store princess dress. Jessica at 12, awkward in her band uniform with her clarinet. Jessica at 18, high school graduation, wearing the dress Maggie had sewn herself because the one Jessica wanted from Nordstrom was $300, and that was absolutely insane for something you'll wear once. Jessica had cried for 2 days about that dress. In the corner of one photo, barely visible, was David. 31 years old, thinner than he'd be later, before the hard work of providing for a family patted his middle and bent his shoulders. He was laughing at something off camera, his hand resting on 5-year-old Jessica's head. Maggie's mother used to say, "Maggie, don't confuse the price of something with its value." Maggie had taught that same lesson to Jessica for 28 years. Somewhere between her private college tuition and her influencer career, Jessica had learned the opposite. The coffee had gone cold in her mug, one of those teacher appreciation mugs from 2003 that said "World's Best Teacher," even though she'd been firmly middle of the road. Good, but not great. She'd never won awards or gotten written up in the local paper. Just showed up every day for 34 years and taught kids to read. Maggie stood, joints popping, and walked to the little desk in the corner, the one David had built from scrap lumber. She pulled out her bank statements, the folder she kept with all her financial papers organized by month because chaos gave her hives. Current checking balance, $1,247.32. Savings, $8,921. Retirement fund at age 64, $425,000. That retirement fund represented every penny she hadn't spent for 34 years, every vacation she'd skipped, every dinner out she'd declined, every time she'd darned socks instead of buying new ones, or cut her own hair in the bathroom mirror, or driven David's 1998 Camry until the odometer hit 230,000 miles. $425,000 to last her the rest of her life. Jessica wanted $350,000. For one day. For her half. Maggie sat back down, the chair creaking under her weight. She'd gained 40 pounds since David died, eating her grief in microwavable dinners and ice cream straight from the carton, and pulled the invitation closer. That's when she saw it. Underneath the RSVP card, stuck to the bottom of the envelope, was another piece of mail. It must have been delivered at the same time, gotten stuck together. A different kind of envelope, white, thin, with a plastic window. From Maine Medical Center, marked in red, final notice. Maggie's hands shook as she opened it. Dear Ms. Thompson, this is your third and final notice regarding your outstanding balance of $47,000 for medical services rendered between January and March of this year. If payment is not received within 30 days, this account will be referred to collections. Asterisk. Stage 3 cancer didn't care about wedding budgets. Maggie sat in her kitchen, in her dead husband's shirt, staring at two pieces of paper. One asking for $350,000 for a party. One demanding $47,000 to stay alive long enough to see that party. She laughed, a short, sharp bark of sound that startled the neighbor's cat dozing on her back fence. Then she picked up her phone and dialed Jessica's number. It went straight to voicemail. Of course it did. Jessica never answered anymore. Everyone knew you were supposed to text first. Jessica, Maggie said, her voice steadier than she felt. It's Mom. We need to talk about your invitation. I'm coming to Boston this weekend. Don't make plans. She hung up and looked at both pieces of paper again. Then she did something she hadn't done since David's funeral. She cried. Jessica Thompson held her iPhone at exactly 45 degrees, tilted to catch the late afternoon light filtering through her brownstone apartment's bay windows. The light in Boston at 4 p.m. was chef's kiss, golden but not too golden, bright enough to blur the bags under her eyes, but soft enough to look natural. Hey, beauties, she said to the camera, smile radiant, voice pitched half an octave higher than her real one. So I'm literally obsessed with these new linen sheets from Brooklinen. Link in bio, not sponsored, but like, they should sponsor me. And Brandon just surprised me with reservations at Ostra tonight, because he knows I've been dying to try their oyster selection. She ended the recording, watched it back twice, added the Valencia filter, subtle but made her skin look dewy, and posted it to her Instagram story. At Jessica Lives Luxe, 340,000 followers, Boston-based lifestyle creator, luxury on a budget. Use code JESS20 for discounts. The luxury on a budget part was technically true. Jessica was on a budget. The problem was that her budget was approximately $7,000 a month, and her actual income was closer to $3,200 when she averaged out the brand deals, affiliate commissions, and her consulting gigs. The math didn't math, as the kids on TikTok said. Jessica set her phone down on the West Elm credenza, rented through Feather $89 per month, and surveyed her apartment. Everything looked perfect through the lens. The Restoration Hardware Cloud Couch, also rented $312 per month. The Anthropology Throw Pillows, $248, but she'd return them after tomorrow's flat lay. The CB2 bar cart, $399 she absolutely couldn't afford but had to have. In reality, her apartment was a stage set. The books on the shelf? Bought by color, never read. The fancy cookware? Mostly unused. She'd burned rice 3 times this week. The Brandon just surprised me dinner reservation? She'd booked it herself 2 weeks ago and was currently having a mild panic attack about the $180 prefix menu. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Running late. Meeting went long. Might have to reschedule Ostra? Jessica's stomach dropped. She'd already posted about Ostra. Her followers knew she was going. If she showed up tomorrow with last night's pizza box in her trash can instead of oyster shells, they'd notice. They always noticed. No worries, babe, totally understand. Rain check? She added extra heart emojis to hide her panic. Jessica walked to her bedroom. White walls, white bedding, white everything because it photographed clean and expensive, and opened her laptop. The one place she never, ever showed her followers. She opened Chrome. 17 tabs were already open, each one a different credit card account. Chase Sapphire, $12,847.32, 24.99% APR. Capital One, $8,293.44, 26.99% APR. American Express, $19,284.91, 22.99% APR. Discover, $11,092.38, 24.99% APR. Citi, $15,441.29, 27.99% APR. Store cards, Nordstrom, Sephora, Bloomingdale's, $22,186 combined. Total, $89,145.34. The number hadn't changed since this morning. It never did. That was the problem. Even when she made minimum payments, the interest ate any progress. Jessica had graduated from Boston University 4 years ago with a degree in marketing and $64,000 in student loans. She'd taken an entry-level position at a PR firm, making $42,000 a year, which sounded fine until you divided it by 12, and realized that was $3,500 a month before taxes, which meant roughly $2,600 after, which meant her share of rent in a shoebox apartment in Alston, $1,400, plus student loans, $350, plus utilities, plus food, plus... So she'd started the Instagram. A side hustle, everyone said. Post pretty pictures. Get brand deals. Easy money. Except the only way to get brand deals was to already look like you had money. Designer bags got you bag sponsorships. Luxury vacations got you hotel partnerships. You had to spend money to make money, everyone said. So she'd spent, and spent, and spent. The credit cards were supposed to be temporary, just until she hit 100,000 followers, then 200,000, then 300,000. The deals would come rolling in, everyone said. 6 figures was totally doable for influencers, everyone said. What everyone didn't say, you had to already be rich to look rich enough to get rich. Jessica closed the laptop and walked to her closet. Inside, $40,000 worth of clothing, most with tags still on. Most that would be returned to Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's next week, worn once for a photo, tags carefully hidden with fashion tape. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Her stomach clenched. Probably another collections call. She'd been dodging them for 3 months. But no, it was a main number. She answered. Hi, Ms. Thompson. This is Bridal Couture Boston. Just calling to confirm your final fitting appointment for your Vera Wang trunk show exclusive. The balance of $12,800 is due at pickup. Jessica's mouth went dry. Right, yes, I'll have that. Perfect. We're so excited for you. A fall wedding at the Harborview Estate. That venue is just stunning. Jessica hung up and sat on her bed, the one piece of furniture she actually owned, bought from IKEA 6 years ago and currently sagging in the middle. The wedding wasn't real, not the way her followers thought it was real. Yes, she and Brandon were engaged. Yes, there was a venue, deposit $15,000 on her Capital One. Yes, there was a dress, deposit $3,000 on her Chase. Yes, there were 200 invitations with gold embossing, $4,800 on her Amex. But the actual money for the wedding, the $400,000 she told everyone it was costing, didn't exist. The plan had been simple. Get Mom to contribute her half, $350,000, use that to actually pay off the credit cards and the dress and the venue, then downsize the wedding to something manageable with the remaining money. Tell followers the wedding was postponed or intimate, or we decided to elope. Nobody would know. They never did. Jessica pulled up her text thread with Brandon. We need to talk about the money situation. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Babe, I told you. My Q4 bonus is coming. We'll figure it out. Brandon's bonus, right. Brandon Stewart, 31, entrepreneur. Which meant he ran a dropshipping business from his friend Kyle's spare room, reselling cheapo stuff from AliExpress at markup on his Shopify store. Last month, he'd made $1,200 profit. The month before, $890. His Rolex was fake. Jessica had noticed the second-hand tick instead of sweep. His BMW was leased at $740 a month he could barely afford. They were two people playing rich, drowning together. Jessica's phone buzzed again. This time a voicemail from Mom. She almost didn't listen. Mom's calls were always the same. "How are you doing, sweetie? Are you eating enough vegetables? Did you get the card I sent?" But something in her gut made her press play. "Jessica, it's Mom. We need to talk about your invitation. I'm coming to Boston this weekend. Don't make plans." The tone. That wasn't Mom's usual voice. Soft, accommodating, forever worried. That was her teacher voice. The one that meant someone was about to get detention. Jessica's heart rate kicked up. She pulled out the wedding binder. Yes, she had a physical binder because Pinterest said you had to, and found the note she'd included with Mom's invitation, thinking $350,000 would cover my half of the expenses. Shit. Had she been too direct? Should she have warmed Mom up first, maybe visited for Thanksgiving, buttered her up with compliments about her pot roast? No, it was fine. Mom always gave Jessica what she asked for. Always had. Jessica remembered being 8 years old, crying because she couldn't have the American Girl doll. $110, the one with the historical outfit and accessories. Dad had worked double shifts for a month at the carpentry shop to buy it. Jessica had played with it exactly twice before it ended up in the closet, forgotten behind her Barbies. Mom would say yes. She always said yes. Jessica opened her laptop again, pulled up her wedding budget real spreadsheet, the one she'd never shown Brandon. Current debt to pay off before collections lawsuits. $89,145.34 amount from Mom. $350,000 remaining for actual wedding. $260,854.66. They could have a nice wedding for $60,000. Real nice. Then use the rest to... Her phone rang again. Brandon. "Hey, babe," she answered, voice automatically shifting to her soft girlfriend tone. "So listen," Brandon said, and Jessica could hear traffic in the background, which meant he wasn't at any meeting. "Kyle's grandmother died." "Oh my God, is he okay?" "He's fine. But here's the thing. She left him like $100,000, and I was thinking, maybe Kyle could invest in our wedding content? You know, like a business partnership thing? Film the whole thing, make it into a documentary-style series for your channel? Could totally go viral." Jessica's stomach turned. "Brandon, we can't ask Kyle to fund our wedding. Not fund, invest. There's a difference. When your follower count goes up, brand deals go up, we pay him back with interest." "I gotta go," Jessica said. "My mom's calling." "Wait." She hung up. Jessica sat on her rented couch in her rented apartment, surrounded by rented furniture and borrowed time. Her phone buzzed. A notification from her bank. "Insufficient funds. Your payment of $150 to Chase Bank has been declined. Insufficient funds in account. Overdraft fee, $35. Jessica opened Instagram and posted a photo from last week. Her and Brandon at a rooftop bar. Drinks that cost $18 each. Sunset glowing behind them. Caption, "Grateful for this life and this man. Sometimes you just have to stop and appreciate the little things." It got 3,200 likes in the first 10 minutes. Nobody knew. Nobody ever knew. Maggie's 2003 Honda CR-V made a concerning rattling sound somewhere around Portsmouth, New Hampshire, but she ignored it. The car had 187,000 miles and a crack in the windshield shaped like a lightning bolt. It would get her to Boston or it wouldn't. Either way, she'd deal with it. The GPS on her phone, the iPhone 8 that Jessica had sent her 3 Christmases ago, used because you need to get with the times, Mom, directed her through streets she barely recognized. Boston had changed since she'd last visited, which was... when? Jessica's college graduation 6 years ago. They'd gone to Cheesecake Factory after the ceremony. Jessica had ordered a salad, $17, and picked at it, complained it was too much dressing. Maggie had eaten her entire slice of ultimate red velvet cake cheesecake, $8.95, in silent resentment. She found parking 3 blocks from Jessica's apartment, $35 for 2 hours, highway robbery, and fed the meter with quarters she'd been saving in a jar for situations exactly like this. Ridiculous. The brownstone was one of those converted multifamily buildings that wealthy people bought and turned into condos, slapped some fancy molding on, and charged a fortune for. The directory listed J. Thompson and B. Stewart, Unit 3B, so they were living together. When had that happened? Maggie pressed the buzzer. Static then. "Hello?" Jessica's voice, tinny through the speaker. It's Mom. Pause. Longer than necessary. Oh, Mom, come on up. The buzzer sounded and Maggie pushed through the heavy door, original oak, probably worth more than her car, and climbed 3 flights of stairs. By the time she reached the top, she was winded, her knees aching. 64 felt 74 some days. Jessica stood in the doorway, and Maggie almost didn't recognize her. Her daughter had always been pretty, took after David's side, with those sharp cheekbones and long legs. But this version of Jessica looked manufactured. Hair extensions, definitely. Eyelashes too long to be real. Nails painted that millennial pink shade Maggie had seen in magazines. She wore athleisure, that's what they called it now, right? Leggings that probably cost $100 and a crop top showing off her flat stomach. Mom! Jessica hugged her, and Maggie smelled expensive perfume. You should have told me you were coming. I would have cleaned up. The apartment was spotless. Looked like a magazine spread, all whites and grays and those trendy pampas grass arrangements in oversized vases. Nothing looked lived in. Nothing looked real. Nice place, Maggie said, because what else do you say? Thanks, Brandon and I just redid the whole thing. Interior designer from Cambridge, she did an amazing job. Very Scandinavian modern, you know? Maggie didn't know. She set her purse down on a chair that looked more like art than furniture. So, you want coffee? I have this amazing pour-over. Jessica, sit down. The teacher voice. Jessica's smile flickered. Is everything okay? That's what I'm here to find out. Jessica sat on the edge of the couch, perched like she might need to run. Maggie remained standing. Better position of authority. $350,000, Maggie said. No preamble, no warmth. That's what you're asking for. Right, well, I know it sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But Mom, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Brandon and I, we've been planning. How much do you make a year, Jessica? Jessica blinked. What? Simple question. How much do you earn? I'm an influencer, Mom. It varies. Brand deals, sponsorships. Give me a number. Jessica's throat worked. Last year, total income was around 40,000? 40,000. And your rent? $3,400 a month, but that's Boston prices. $40,000 a year, paying $40,000 a year in rent alone. Maggie let that sit. Where's the rest coming from? Brandon contributes. How much does Brandon make? Silence. Maggie looked around the apartment again. Really looked. The credenza with the price tag still stuck to the bottom. The couch with rental company tags tucked under the cushions. The art on the walls. Prints. Not originals. The kind you buy at Home Goods for $49.99. It all looked expensive. None of it was real. You're drowning, Maggie said quietly. Aren't you? Jessica's eyes filled with tears. The real kind, not the pretty kind she probably filmed for her videos. Mom, it's not like that. Brandon has this business. It's just taking time to get off the ground. And my follower count is growing every day. We just need a little help to pay for a wedding you can't afford. To invest in our future. Jessica's voice went sharp. You don't understand how this works. This wedding, it's content. It's brand building. Once we post about it, partnerships will come. Real money. Maggie felt something crack in her chest. This was her daughter. The girl she'd raised to return library books on time and say thank you, and understand that money doesn't grow on trees. Jessica, she said slowly, I'm not giving you $350,000. Jessica's face went white. What? I'm not giving you the money. But you have it. Dad's life insurance. Your father had a $20,000 policy. That's it. That covered his funeral and 6 months of bills. Then the house. The house is worth $500,000. Everyone says real estate in Portland. The house is my home. It's where your father and I built our life. I'm not selling it so you can throw a party. Jessica stood, hands shaking. A party? Mom, this is my wedding. This is the most important day of my life. Then maybe you should pay for it yourself. I can't. Jessica's voice cracked. I can't, okay? I'm drowning, you're right. I'm drowning and I need help and you're my mother and that's why I'm saying no. The words hung in the air like smoke. Jessica stared at her. What? Maggie sat down, suddenly exhausted. Your father and I, we gave you everything. Every toy you wanted. Every activity. Private college when we could barely afford community college. We never said no, not once. So say yes now. And what happens after the wedding, Jessica? You think a party solves debt? You think Instagram likes pay bills? You don't get it. You're old. You don't understand how the world works now. I understand that debt is debt, no matter what generation you're in. Maggie's voice hardened. I understand that spending money you don't have to impress people you don't know is insane. I understand that I failed you by never teaching you the word no. Jessica's face crumpled. Please, Mom. Please, I'll pay you back, I promise. With what money? Silence. Maggie stood. Her knees protested. I can give you $25,000. That's what your father and I spent our entire first year of marriage, including the wedding. $25,000? Mom, that's insulting. Do you know what weddings cost now? Do you? Jessica opened her mouth, closed it. Have you actually priced this wedding? Maggie pressed. Or did you just pick a number that sounded impressive? No answer. Maggie picked up her purse. I drove 2 hours to tell you this in person because you deserve that. But I'm not funding your fantasy, Jessica. You're 28 years old. It's time to grow up. Wait. Jessica's voice went small. Mom, wait. Maggie turned. Jessica's makeup was running now, mascara tracking down her cheeks. The Instagram filter couldn't save her here. I'm in trouble, Jessica whispered. Real trouble. I owe so much money, Mom. Almost $90,000. Credit cards. If I don't pay, they'll sue me. I'll lose everything. Maggie felt her heart crack clean through. Oh, honey. So please, I know $350 is a lot, but I need it. Jessica. Maggie's voice was gentle now. I have cancer. The words fell like stones. Jessica blinked. What? Stage 3, I found out in January. Treatment starts next month. You? Jessica couldn't seem to form sentences. Why didn't you tell me? I did. 4 days ago. I left you a voicemail. You never called back. Jessica grabbed for her phone, scrolled frantically. I didn't. There's so many notifications I must have missed. You missed your mother telling you she has cancer. Jessica looked up, and for the first time in years, Maggie saw her daughter. Really saw her. Under the makeup and the filters and the performance, there was a scared little girl who'd gotten lost somewhere. How much? Jessica asked. For treatment? $47,000 out of pocket. Jessica's face did something complicated. Maggie watched her do the math. If Mom has $47,000 in medical bills, she can't have $350,000 for a wedding. Then Jessica said, Can't you sell the house? Maggie felt something die inside her. Sell my home, she said slowly, to pay for your wedding. Not just the wedding, the medical bills too. You could sell, get treatment, and there'd be enough for... Maggie walked to the door. Mom, wait. Goodbye, Jessica. Mom, please. Maggie closed the door on her daughter's voice and walked down 3 flights of stairs and got in her rattling Honda and cried so hard she had to pull over on I-95 because she couldn't see the road. She'd raised this. She'd created a daughter who asked her dying mother to sell her home to pay for a party. The worst part? She blamed herself. Maggie couldn't sleep. She'd made it back to Portland by 9 p.m., stopped at McDonald's for dinner, $6.47 for a Big Mac meal, fries cold by the time she ate them in the parking lot, and drove the rest of the way on autopilot. When she'd gotten home, she'd sat in her car for 20 minutes, staring at her house. It was small. Built in 1952, Cape Cod style with cedar shingles that needed repainting. David had done most of the work himself, replaced the roof in 2003, rebuilt the back deck in 2008, spent countless weekends in the basement fixing pipes and wiring and the hot water heater that died every 3 years like clockwork. Sell this house. For a wedding. Now it was 2 a.m., and Maggie sat at her kitchen table, laptop open. The same laptop David had bought her in 2015 so they could Skype with Jessica at college. It took 5 minutes to boot up and made sounds like a dying animal, but it worked. Maggie wasn't good with technology. She'd taught 4th grade in the era of chalkboards, had resisted smartboards until the school made her, still wrote her grocery lists on paper like a normal person. But she knew how Facebook worked. Barely. She typed Jessica Thompson Boston into the search bar. Her daughter's profile was public. Of course it was. How else would strangers admire her? Maggie scrolled. Photos of Jessica and Brandon at restaurants Maggie couldn't afford. Jessica in dresses Maggie couldn't pronounce. Jessica at someone's beach house on the Cape, cocktail in hand, caption reading grateful for friends who feel like family. Every photo was a performance. Every caption was an advertisement. Even Jessica's engagement announcement was sponsored. So blessed to say yes to forever with at Brandon Stewart. Wearing at Revolve dress. Use code JESS20. Ring from at Brilliant Earth. Asterisk. Her engagement ring was an ad. Maggie clicked on Brandon's profile. Private, but she could see his profile picture. Him in a suit, leaning against a BMW, looking like every finance bro who'd ever existed. She opened a new tab and searched Brandon Stewart, Boston entrepreneur. Nothing. A LinkedIn profile with exactly 3 connections and a job title of CEO, Stewart Luxury Imports. No company website, no articles, nothing. She searched Stewart Luxury Imports. Nothing. Maggie felt something cold settle in her stomach. She opened another tab, her bank's website, logged in, checking account, savings, retirement fund. All there, all untouched since she'd checked yesterday. But there was a notification. She clicked. Recent credit check alert. Your credit was checked on February 7th, 2025 by Northeast Personal Lending. Maggie frowned. She hadn't applied for any loans. She clicked for more details. Loan application. $15,000 personal loan applicant. Margaret Thompson. Co-applicant. Jessica Thompson. Status approved. Reference. Margaret Thompson, mother. No. Maggie called the bank's 24-hour line with shaking hands. Northeast Credit Union. This is Marcus speaking. How can I help you tonight? Shit. Marcus. Not Marcus. The instructions said no character named Marcus. Let me restart. Northeast Credit Union. This is Gerald speaking. How can I help you tonight? This is Margaret Thompson. Account number. She rattled off the numbers. I have an alert about a credit check I didn't authorize. Keys clicking. Okay, Mrs. Thompson. I see that here. Looks like a personal loan application was submitted using your information as a reference for your daughter, Jessica Thompson. The loan was approved and dispersed 3 months ago. I never signed anything. Well, it shows here that we received a signed reference form with your information. The loan was approved based on that reference. I didn't sign anything. Pause. Ma'am, are you saying this might be fraud? Maggie's head spun. How much is the loan? $15,000. And what's the status? Longer pause. It's 90 days delinquent. 3 missed payments. Collections attempts began last week. Collections calling who? The reference, you. Standard practice when a loan goes delinquent. We contact all parties on the application. So you're going to call me to collect money for a loan I didn't co-sign, that my daughter took out using my information. Ma'am, if you're saying you didn't authorize, I'm saying my daughter committed fraud. The words felt like glass in her throat. Maggie hung up before Gerald could respond. She sat in her kitchen, in the house David built, and felt 34 years of teaching evaporate. She'd taught kids not to cheat, not to steal, not to lie. She'd sent them to the principal's office for forging their parents' signatures on permission slips. Her own daughter had forged her signature for $15,000. Her phone rang. Unknown number, 2:47 a.m. Maggie answered. Mrs. Thompson, this is Northeast. She hung up. Immediately it rang again. She turned her phone off. The laptop glowed in the dark kitchen. Facebook still open, Jessica's perfect life on display. Maggie opened a new browser, typed in Elder Financial Abuse Attorney, Portland, Maine. 17 results. She clicked the first one. Maggie met with Patricia Walsh on a Wednesday morning at a diner called the Friendly Toast, one of those hipster breakfast places where everything cost $14 and came with avocado whether you wanted it or not. Patricia was 58, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses that probably cost more than Maggie's monthly grocery budget. She wore a blazer and carried a leather portfolio that screamed I win cases. Mrs. Thompson, Patricia extended her hand. Thanks for meeting me here. I know my office can feel intimidating. Maggie shook her hand. Patricia's grip was firm, confident. Everything Maggie wasn't feeling right now. They ordered. Maggie got coffee and toast, $8.50, which was insane. Patricia got some kind of egg white situation with microgreens, and Patricia opened her portfolio. So, Elder Financial Abuse. Walk me through what happened. Maggie explained. The loan, the forged signature, the collections calls. Patricia took notes in precise handwriting, nodding occasionally. And you said your daughter asked you for $350,000 for her wedding? Yes. After you told her you have cancer? Yes. Patricia set down her pen. Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to be direct with you. This case, if you want to pursue it, would be winnable. Forged signatures, fraudulent loan applications, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. These are serious charges. But she's your daughter. And pursuing this legally means police reports, court appearances, possibly jail time for her. Are you prepared for that? Maggie looked at her coffee. Black, the way David used to drink it. She'd started drinking it that way after he died, like she could keep him alive through small habits. I don't want her in jail, Maggie said quietly. I want her to stop. Stop what? Being who she's become. Patricia leaned back. That's not something I can litigate. That's parenting. And with respect, Mrs. Thompson, that ship might have sailed. The words stung because they were true. So what do I do? Patricia drummed her fingers on the table. You protect yourself. We file a fraud report with the loan company, dispute the charges, make sure your credit isn't destroyed. We put legal barriers between you and your daughter's financial decisions. And you prepare for the fact that she's going to be very, very angry when she realizes the money train has permanently left the station. Maggie nodded slowly. There's something else. She pulled out a manila envelope from her purse. She'd found it last night, after the phone call with the bank, after she'd stopped crying. It had been in David's filing cabinet, tucked behind tax returns from 2019. The envelope was yellowed, sealed with tape. Written on the front in David's blocky handwriting, Emergency Fund. Do not open unless absolutely necessary. Maggie had opened it at 3 a.m. with shaking hands. Inside, a safety deposit box key and a letter. She handed the letter to Patricia. Read this. Patricia unfolded it, and Maggie watched her face change as she read. Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're in some kind of trouble. I'm sorry I'm not there to help you through it. I'm sorry for a lot of things, actually, but we'll get to that. The key in this envelope opens box number 447 at Portland Savings Bank. Inside that box is $180,000 in cash. Yes, cash. I know that's weird, but I had my reasons. This money isn't from my life insurance. It's from the accident settlement. You remember? The drunk driver who hit me on my bike 3 years ago? The one who ran the red light at Congress and Forest? I told you I was fine, just some bruises. I lied. I broke 3 ribs and punctured a lung. Spent 4 days in the hospital while you were visiting your sister in Florida. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry. Asterisk. The driver had insurance. His company settled out of court, $180,000 after the lawyers took their cut. I never told you because I was ashamed. Ashamed that I was hurt. Ashamed that my body wasn't as strong as it used to be. Ashamed that I took money for pain that was already done. Asterisk. I put the money in that safety deposit box and I told myself I'd tell you eventually. But every time I tried, I thought about Jessica, about how she'd see it, about how she'd think her old man got paid off for being weak. Asterisk. And I knew, God help me, I knew that if I told you about this money, you'd want to give it all to Jessie, for college or a car or whatever thing she wanted that week. And I couldn't let that happen. Asterisk. Maggie, our daughter is in trouble. Not trouble we can see yet, but trouble that's coming. We raised her to believe she deserves everything. We worked ourselves to the bone to give her everything. And we never taught her the most important lesson, that the value of something comes from earning it. I know you'll want to give her this money. Don't. She needs to learn what I never taught her, that the best things in life can't be bought. That struggle builds character. That failure is the best teacher. Asterisk. I failed her, Maggie. I worked overtime for every toy, every dress, every dance lesson. I thought I was being a good father. I was wrong. I was teaching her that money solves everything and that Daddy will always be there to pay for it. Asterisk. Don't make my mistake twice. Use this money for you, for your life, for your future. If Jessie needs help, real help, life or death help, then yes, help her. But if she just wants money to live above her means, let her fall. Let her hit bottom. It's the only way she'll learn to stand on her own. Asterisk. I love you. I love her. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. Your husband, David. P.S. The settlement happened 6 months before I died. I was going to tell you on our anniversary. I'm sorry I ran out of time. Patricia looked up, eyes wet. Jesus. He knew, Maggie whispered. He knew before I did. He was protecting you and her. By lying? By being human. Patricia folded the letter carefully. Mrs. Thompson, this changes things. You have resources. You have options. The question is, what do you want to do? Maggie thought about Jessica's apartment, the rented furniture, the fake life, the desperate request to sell the house. I want to save my daughter, Maggie said. But not by giving her money, by taking it away. Patricia smiled. Now we're talking. Brandon Stewart wasn't a complete idiot. He knew he was running out of time. He sat in Kyle's spare room, the one Kyle graciously let him use as an office in exchange for $400 a month plus utilities, and stared at his laptop screen. 3 monitors, all showing different spreadsheets of failure. Monitor 1. His Shopify store, Stewart Luxury Imports. August revenue, $2,847. August expenses, $3,921. Net, minus $1,074. Monitor 2. His credit card balances. Chase, $47,293. Amex, $31,847. Capital One, $28,441. Store cards, $42,000. Total, $149,581. Monitor 3. His business plan for the wedding content idea. The wedding was supposed to be the big play. Jessica had 340,000 followers. Not huge, but decent. If they played it right, they could turn the wedding into a multi-episode series. Film everything: dress shopping, venue tours, the bachelor/bachelorette parties, the actual day. Package it, sell it to Netflix or Hulu or whoever was desperate for influencer content these days. Worst case? Post it all on YouTube with ads, sell brand partnerships, make maybe $50,000 to $60,000 off the content alone. But that only worked if there was a wedding. And right now, there wasn't even enough money for the deposits they'd already put down. Brandon pulled up this private investigator's report, the one he'd paid $2,500 for, on credit naturally, 3 months ago. He'd hired the guy through some sketchy website that promised discreet background checks for personal matters. The report on Margaret Thompson was thorough. Subject: Margaret Ann Thompson, née Williams. Age: 64. Marital status: widowed, 2020. Residence: 847 Ocean Avenue, Portland, Maine, 04103. Property value: estimated $520,000, Zillow estimate. Retirement accounts: $425,000. Fidelity 401k. Monthly income: $3,200. Survivor benefits from husband's pension. Employment: part-time florist, Fletcher's Flowers, $13.50 per hour, approx $1,700 per month. Debts: none. Credit score: 802. Total estimated net worth: $945,000 plus, nearly $1 million. Sitting in some tiny house in Portland, being hoarded by a woman who worked at a flower shop for fun money. Meanwhile, Brandon was drowning, and Jessica was drowning, and this old lady was sitting on nearly $1 million like some kind of dragon. It wasn't fair. Brandon's phone buzzed. Kyle. Dude, you coming to dinner? Mom made lasagna. Kyle's mom. Kyle's house. Kyle's charity. Brandon was 31 years old and living in his childhood best friend's spare room because he'd gotten evicted from his last apartment for missing 3 months of rent. The BMW, repoed last week. He'd been Ubering everywhere and telling Jessica it was in the shop. The Rolex? Wish.com, $47. Even his designer sneakers were knockoffs from DH Gate. He was a fraud. A broke, desperate fraud. And Margaret Thompson was his only way out. Brandon opened a new document. Started typing. Operation Legacy Access. Phase 1. Secure the marriage. Marry Jessica. November wedding if possible. Establish legal claim to family assets through marriage. Phase 2. Isolation protocol. Convince Margaret that independent living is unsafe. Research assisted living facilities, $4,000 to $6,000 per month, cheaper than her living alone. Frame it as, we're worried about you, Mom. Phase 3. Financial control. Power of attorney. Jessica can get this. She's the daughter. Joint accounts for easier bill paying. Reverse mortgage on Portland house. Free up cash. Phase 4. Liquidation. Sell house. $520,000. Cash out retirement fund. Early withdrawal penalty, but still $300,000 plus. Help Margaret manage her money. Transfer to accounts we control. Projected timeline: 18 to 24 months. Projected return: $800,000 plus. Brandon read it over. Solid plan? Ethical? Debatable. But elder care was expensive, and Margaret was going to need help eventually anyway. They'd just be accelerating the timeline. For everyone's benefit. His phone rang. Jessica. Hey, babe, he answered, voice smooth. What's up? Brandon? Jessica's voice was tight. My mom said no. No to what? The money. All of it. She said she'll give us $25,000. That's it. Brandon's stomach dropped. $25,000 was nothing. Wouldn't even cover their combined credit card minimums for 6 months. Okay, he said carefully. Okay, that's fine. We'll work with that. It's not fine. We owe... Jessica stopped. She never told him the exact amount she owed. We can't do the wedding for $25,000. So we postpone. Do a small thing now, big thing later when... Brandon, I already sent the invitations. 200 invitations. To influencers, to brands, to everyone. If we postpone, I look like a fraud. You are a fraud, Brandon thought. We both are. What about your mom's house? He asked instead. She won't sell it. Even for medical bills? Pause. What medical bills? Oh, so Jessica didn't know. Interesting. Nothing, Brandon backtracked. I just meant, old people have medical stuff. I'm sure she's got expenses. She has cancer, Brandon. Silence. What? Stage 3. She told me when she came to visit. She needs $47,000 for treatment. Brandon's mind raced. Cancer. Medical debt. Perfect. Babe, he said, voice dripping with concern. That's terrible. Is she okay? I don't know. Jessica's voice cracked. I asked her if she could sell the house to pay for treatment and the wedding, and she looked at me like I was a monster. You're not a monster, you're practical. Am I? Jessica sounded lost. Brandon, I think I messed up. You didn't mess up. Your mom's being unreasonable. That house is worth $500,000 and she's living there alone. What's she saving it for? She should be helping her daughter. Or paying for her cancer treatment. Right, exactly. And she can do both if she just sells the house. She's being stubborn. Kyle appeared in the doorway, holding a plate of lasagna. He mouthed, "Dinner's ready." Brandon waved him off. Listen, Brandon said into the phone. Your mom loves you. She's just scared. Old people get weird about money, but she'll come around. In the meantime, let's think about our options. What options? We're broke, Brandon. I'm broke. If those credit card companies sue me, they won't sue you. You don't know that, Jessica. Brandon used his calm voice, the one that always worked. Trust me, I've got a plan. Just don't do anything crazy, okay? Don't call your mom. Don't make any big decisions. Let me handle this. Handle it how? I'm working on something, a solution that works for everyone. After he hung up, Kyle handed him the plate. You're a piece of shit, you know that? Kyle said. Brandon took a bite of lasagna. It was good. Kyle's mom could cook. What? I've got a plan? Bro, your plan is to scam your girlfriend's dying mother. I'm not scamming anyone. I'm helping restructure family assets for your benefit. Brandon set down the fork. Kyle, you don't get it. You've got family money. Your grandma left you $100,000 when she died. My family? My dad died broke and my mom's in a trailer park in Florida. I've got nothing. Jessica's got nothing. And her mom is sitting on nearly $1 million she doesn't even need. She has cancer, Brandon, so we'll make sure she gets treatment. But she doesn't need a $500,000 house to do that. She can live somewhere smaller, cheaper. We can help her. Everyone wins. Kyle stared at him. You actually believe that, don't you? Believe what? That you're the victim here. Brandon stood. You know what? Forget it. I don't need a lecture from someone whose biggest financial worry is whether to buy the regular PlayStation or the Pro. At least I'm not trying to rob old ladies. I'm not... Brandon stopped, took a breath. You know what? When this all works out, when Jessica and I are living in that Portland house and her mom is safely taken care of in a nice facility, you're going to feel really stupid for judging me. Kyle pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Brandon asked. Something I should have done months ago. He pressed record. Sarah Brennan had worked at Northeast Credit Union for 17 years. She'd started as a teller at 23, worked her way up to branch manager, and now at 40, she made $68,000 a year and knew every financial regulation in the book. She also knew when something smelled wrong. The Jessica Thompson loan had bothered her from day one. Personal loans required collateral or a co-signer with excellent credit. Jessica's credit was garbage. Sarah had seen the report. But the reference from Margaret Thompson had been glowing. Solid credit, no debts, substantial assets. Except Margaret Thompson had never signed that reference form. Sarah was 90% certain. She'd processed enough forged documents to know the signs. Signature slightly off, form filled out in identical handwriting throughout. People's handwriting changes between fields. Information too perfect. Real references have crossouts and corrections. But she hadn't said anything. Bank policy was to assume good faith unless proven otherwise. Plus, questioning loans hurt her quarterly numbers, and she had a mortgage and 2 kids in braces. Then Margaret Thompson had called, and Sarah had realized. Margaret Thompson had been her 4th grade teacher. Sarah remembered Mrs. Thompson, patient, kind, always staying late to help kids who struggled with reading. Sarah had been one of those kids, dyslexia, undiagnosed until high school, and Mrs. Thompson had spent hours working with her after school, using colored overlays and special fonts and infinite patience. Mrs. Thompson was the reason Sarah could read, so when Margaret Thompson called asking about the loan, Sarah had done something technically against policy. She'd looked at the file after hours and made copies. Now she sat in the friendly toast. She'd followed Mrs. Thompson here after her meeting with the lawyer, waited until the lawyer left, and slid a manila folder across the table. "Mrs. Thompson," she said quietly, "you probably don't remember me. I was Sarah Brennan. Well, Sarah Mitchell back then. You taught me 4th grade in 1993. Maggie's face brightened. "Sarah, oh my goodness, of course I remember you. You loved those Junie B. Jones books. Because of you, you're the reason I learned to read." Sarah tapped the folder. "So I'm breaking about 17 bank policies by showing you this. But you need to see it." Maggie opened the folder. Inside, the loan application, the reference form with her signature, bank statements showing the $15,000 disbursement directly to Jessica's account, and 3 months of collections notices, all sent to Maggie's address. "This is forgery," Maggie said. "Yes." Jessica signed my name. "Almost certainly." Maggie's hands shook. "What happens now?" "You file a police report. We mark the loan as fraudulent. Your credit gets protected. Jessica gets investigated for fraud." Sarah paused. "She could face criminal charges." "I don't want that. Mrs. Thompson, I know she's your daughter, but this is serious, and—" Sarah pulled out another paper. "There's more. This paper was different. An application for a joint checking account dated 3 days ago. Jessica came in Tuesday, said she needed to help you manage your finances because of your medical condition. She had a power of attorney document." Maggie's face went white. "I never signed a power of attorney." "I know. That's why I didn't process it. The signature looked wrong. But Mrs. Thompson, she's going to try again. Maybe at a different branch. Maybe online. She's desperate." "How desperate?" Sarah showed her one more document. Jessica's credit report, the one she'd pulled during the loan application. Maggie read it. The number at the bottom made her dizzy. Total debt, $89,145.34. "Oh, Jessica," Maggie whispered. "She's drowning," Sarah said gently. "And drowning people grab onto anything, including the people trying to save them." Maggie looked up. "What do I do?" Sarah glanced around, then leaned in. "My brother works in digital forensics. Computer stuff, mostly corporate fraud cases. But he owes me a favor. If you want, he can look at Jessica's financial records, track where the money's going. Sometimes knowing the full picture helps." "That feels like spying. It's protecting yourself." Maggie closed the folder. Thought about David's letter. About Jessica asking her to sell the house. About 34 years of teaching integrity and raising a daughter who didn't understand the word. "Okay," Maggie said. "Call your brother." Sarah smiled. "Already did. He's meeting us at your house in an hour." "Anna? Sarah's brother turned out to be a 34-year-old guy named Derek who wore a hoodie that said, "I void warranties," and carried 3 laptops in a backpack. He sat at Maggie's kitchen table, the same table where she'd opened Jessica's invitation a lifetime ago, and cracked his knuckles. "Okay, Mrs. T, Sarah says you need a financial deep dive on your daughter. That's going to require accessing some semi-private stuff. You cool with that? Is it legal? Define legal." Sarah smacked his arm. "Derek, fine. Technically, if you're concerned about financial exploitation, you have standing to investigate, especially if she's used your identity for fraudulent purposes." He opened a laptop. "I'm going to need access to anything she's given you. Passwords, emails, anything." Maggie pulled out her phone. "She set up my Facebook account 3 years ago, made herself an admin so she could help me if I got locked out." Derek grinned. "Oh, that's perfect. Okay, let's see what little Jessica's been up to." His fingers flew across the keyboard. Windows opened and closed. Code scrolled past. Maggie understood none of it. After 20 minutes, Derek sat back. "Yikes." "What?" Maggie asked. "Your daughter's not just broke, Mrs. T. She's catastrophically broke. Like one missed payment from losing everything broke." He turned the screen. "Look, spreadsheet after spreadsheet. Credit card statements. Venmo transactions. PayPal invoices. She's running a classic lifestyle inflation scheme," Derek explained. "See here? She buys expensive stuff, clothes, furniture, whatever, uses it for Instagram photos, then returns it. The credit card gets refunded, she pays the minimum, and boom, free content. but she owes $90,000 because she can't return everything, and the interest is eating her alive. Plus, look at this. He clicked another window. She's taking cash advances on some cards to make minimum payments on others. That's a death spiral. Within 6 months, she'll be facing lawsuits. Maggie felt sick. Is there more? Oh yeah, check out her DMS. Derek pulled up Jessica's Instagram, showed Maggie the direct messages. Dozens of them. Brands asking for payment for services never delivered. Photographers threatening legal action for unpaid invoices. A venue saying her deposit was forfeited if she didn't pay the balance by next month. And messages from Brandon. Derek clicked on one thread. Brandon, did you ask your mom yet? Jessica, working on it. She's being difficult. Brandon, we need that money, Jess. The plan only works if we get access to her assets. Jessica, I know. I'll figure it out. Brandon, remember what we talked about? Joint accounts, POA, then transition her to assisted living. 18 months max. Maggie read it 3 times. He's planning to steal from me, she said quietly. Worse, Derek said. He's planning to isolate you, take control of your finances, and probably stick you in a nursing home so he can liquidate everything you own. Sarah squeezed Maggie's hand. We can stop this. How? Derek closed the laptop. Easy. We show Jessica what her boyfriend's really planning. Let them destroy each other. Maggie looked at both of them. Sarah, the student she'd taught to read. Derek, a stranger helping her out of kindness. And she thought about Jessica, her daughter, the little girl who used to bring her dandelions from the yard and call them the prettiest flowers ever. When had that girl disappeared? No, Maggie said. We're not showing Jessica anything. What? Sarah frowned. Mrs. Thompson? We're showing everyone. Maggie stood, walked to David's filing cabinet, and pulled out the key to the safety deposit box. Derek, you said you can track digital stuff, right? Make copies? Yeah, anything online. Why? Because we're going to document everything. Every message, every transaction, every lie. And then we're going to Boston. To do what? Maggie smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. To teach a lesson they'll never forget. Maggie drove to Boston on a Thursday morning with Patricia Walsh in the passenger seat, Derek in the back with his laptops, and a Cumberland County Sheriff's deputy named Officer Rita Gonzalez following in a patrol car. You sure about this? Patricia asked for the 3rd time. No, Maggie said, but I'm doing it anyway. They'd spent 3 days preparing. Derek had compiled everything into a neat digital portfolio. Screenshots of Brandon's messages, Jessica's fraudulent loan application, bank statements showing the debt spiral, and the crown jewel, a recording Kyle had sent them. Kyle had reached out through Facebook after seeing one of Jessica's posts. Turns out he'd been recording Brandon's scheming for weeks, waiting for the right moment to blow the whistle. He'd be meeting them at the apartment. Jessica's building looked different in daylight. Less romantic, more run down. The brick needed repointing. The front door didn't lock properly. They climbed to the 3rd floor, Maggie's knees screaming with every step, and knocked. Jessica answered in leggings and a BU sweatshirt, no makeup. She looked younger, scared. Mom? Her eyes went wide. Who are all these people? We need to talk, Maggie said. Now. Brandon appeared behind Jessica, and Maggie felt her blood pressure spike. He wore joggers and a t-shirt that said hustle hard. His fake Rolex caught the light. Mrs. Thompson? Brandon said, smile plastic. What a surprise. I'm sure it is. Maggie walked past Jessica into the apartment. Everyone inside. This won't take long. Patricia entered, then Derek with his laptop bag, then Officer Gonzalez in full uniform. Jessica's face went white. Mom, what's happening? Sit down, Jessica. I don't... Sit down. The teacher voice. Jessica sat. Brandon remained standing, arms crossed. Look, I don't know what this is, but you can't just barge in here with cops. Officer Gonzalez is here as a witness, Patricia said smoothly. I'm Patricia Walsh, elder law attorney, and you must be Brandon Stewart, CEO of Stewart Luxury Imports? Brandon's jaw tightened. Yeah. Funny, that company doesn't exist. No LLC registration, no tax ID, no business license. Patricia smiled. But you knew that. Derek set up his laptop on the coffee table, the rented Restoration Hardware one with the tag still tucked underneath. What is this? Jessica's voice shook. Maggie pulled out a chair and sat across from her daughter. This is the part where you tell me the truth. All of it. I don't know what you... $89,145. Maggie's voice was steel. That's how much you owe. 7 credit cards maxed out, 24% interest, minimum payments you can't make. Jessica's face crumpled. How did you? The loan you took out in my name, $15,000. Forged signature, 90 days delinquent. Mom, I can explain. The power of attorney you tried to file, to take control of my accounts, because I'm mentally incompetent due to advanced age and medical diagnosis. Maggie pulled out the document. Did you write this yourself, or did Brandon help you? Jessica looked at Brandon. He wouldn't meet her eyes. Brandon? Jessica's voice was small. Derek turned the laptop around. Let me show you something, Jessica. On screen, Brandon's messages, the 18-month plan, the assisted living facility, the reverse mortgage. Every word of his scheme to isolate Maggie and liquidate her assets. Jessica read it once, twice. Her hands started shaking. Brandon, what is this? Babe, it's not. She's twisting it. You wanted to put my mother in a home? Jessica stood. You wanted to steal from her? I was trying to help. Your mom's got cancer. She can't live alone. I have stage 3 cancer, Maggie said quietly. Not dementia. I can manage my own life just fine. The door opened. Kyle walked in, holding his phone. Sorry I'm late, he said. Traffic was brutal. Brandon's face went from angry to terrified in 3 seconds flat. Kyle, what the hell, man? Remember that bro code conversation? Kyle hit play on his phone. Brandon's voice filled the apartment. Dude, this is generational wealth we're talking about. Old people in America are sitting on millions while we're drowning in student debt. It's not wrong. It's wealth redistribution. Kyle's voice. That's elder abuse, Brandon. Brandon's voice. It is helping. Once we get married, I'll convince Jessica to get power of attorney. Then it's easy. Old people don't understand money anymore. We'll be doing her a favor. The recording ended. Jessica stared at Brandon like she'd never seen him before. You investigated my mother? Like a mark? Jessica, listen. You targeted me because of her money. That's not... Answer the question! Jessica screamed. Did you date me because of my mother's money? Silence. Brandon's silence was the loudest answer in the room. Jessica's legs gave out. She sat hard on the couch, hands over her face. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God. Patricia stepped forward. Mr. Stewart, you have 2 options. Option 1, we file a police report for attempted elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. You're looking at 5 to 15 years. Brandon's face went gray. Option 2, you sign a cease and desist, agree to never contact Margaret or Jessica Thompson again, and you leave this apartment right now. Tonight. Forever. I live here. Not anymore, Kyle said. Your name's not on the lease. Only Jessica's is. Brandon looked at Jessica. Babe, come on. You know I love you. Get out, Jessica whispered. Jessica. Get out! She stood, mascara streaming down her face. Get out before I let them arrest you. Get out! Brandon grabbed his keys from the counter, his fake Rolex, his phone. At the door, he turned. You're making a huge mistake, both of you. That money could have what? Maggie stood, all 5'3" of her, and stared him down. Paid for your debts? Your leased car? Your fake life? My husband worked 40 years as a carpenter. He earned every penny we have. You've earned nothing. Brandon left. The door closed. Silence. Jessica sank to the floor, sobbing. Not pretty crying. Ugly crying. Snot and tears and animal sounds. Maggie wanted to comfort her. Wanted to hold her daughter like she had when Jessica was small and fell off her bike. But she didn't. Patricia, Derek, and Officer Gonzalez quietly left. Kyle squeezed Maggie's shoulder on his way out. You did the right thing, he whispered. Then it was just Maggie and Jessica in the apartment full of rented furniture and borrowed time. I'm sorry, Jessica sobbed. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know about his plan. I needed help and I thought... You thought I'd save you? Jessica nodded, face in her hands. I thought the hardest day of my life was when your father died. Maggie picked up her purse. I was wrong. The hardest day is realizing I raised a stranger who valued money more than her dying mother. Mom, please. I'm not giving you money, Jessica. Not now. Not ever. You need to hit bottom before you can learn to stand up. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I. Maggie walked to the door. But you're 28 years old. It's time you figured it out. She left her daughter crying on the floor of her fake apartment in her fake life, and Maggie cried the entire drive home. 3 weeks later, Maggie sold the house. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Every room held memories of David, and those memories had curdled into something painful. The kitchen where they'd cooked Sunday dinners. The bedroom where he'd died in his sleep. The basement workshop where he'd built Jessica's dollhouse, her bookshelf, her hope chest. All of it reminded Maggie of failure. She'd failed to teach Jessica gratitude, failed to set boundaries, failed to see Brandon's scheme until it was almost too late. The house sold in 4 days, $520,000, cash offer from a young couple with a baby. They loved the built-in shelves David had made, loved the garden Maggie had planted, loved everything she was leaving behind. Maggie moved into a short-term rental while she figured out what came next. Patricia helped her set up a trust for the money. David's $180,000. The house sale. Her retirement fund. All protected, all untouchable by anyone but Maggie. Total, $1,125,000. She paid her medical bills, $47,000. Started treatment. The chemo made her sick, but she was stubborn. And then Rachel Kim called. Rachel was a documentary filmmaker, 34, Korean-American, with thick-rimmed glasses and a passion for exposing financial fraud. "Mrs. Thompson," she said over coffee, "your story is exactly what we're looking for. Elder financial abuse by adult children. It's an epidemic. But nobody talks about it because of shame. You want to film my shame? I want to film your strength." Rachel leaned forward. "You stopped your daughter from destroying you. You exposed a predator. You protected yourself. That's not shame. That's heroism." Maggie laughed bitterly. "I'm not a hero. I'm a mother who failed." "You're a mother who learned to say no. That's rare." The documentary was called American Greed Family Edition. Maggie's episode was called The Price of Love. They filmed for 3 months. Interviewed Maggie, Patricia, Sarah, Derek, Kyle. Showed Brandon's messages. Jessica's debt. The fake Rolex. The rented furniture. Everything. When they asked if they could interview Jessica, Maggie said no. "She's struggling enough," Maggie said. "Let her struggle in private." The episode aired on Netflix 6 months after the confrontation. 15 million views in the first week. #Elder Abuse Awareness trended on Twitter for 3 days. Jessica's Instagram, which she hadn't updated since Brandon left, was flooded with comments. Angry, supportive, curious, cruel. Every spectrum of human reaction. Brandon was arrested 2 weeks after the documentary aired. 3 other women came forward, all elderly, all targeted through their daughters or granddaughters. He was charged with 15 counts of elder fraud. Maggie watched the news coverage alone in her rental apartment, eating microwaved soup. She should have felt victorious. She just felt empty. 8 months after the documentary, Maggie bought a small ranch house in Missoula, Montana. Why Montana? Because it was far from Portland, far from Boston, far from memories. The house cost $185,000. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, half an acre with mountain views. She furnished it with secondhand furniture from estate sales, planted a garden, joined a cancer support group, made friends her own age who didn't use Instagram. She volunteered at the Adult Literacy Center, teaching people to read. It felt full circle, teaching again, but without the pressure, without the failure of Jessica hanging over her. Her phone stayed silent. Jessica hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't emailed. Maggie told herself she didn't care, told herself Jessica needed space to figure out her life. But every Sunday at 6 p.m., Maggie sat by her phone, just in case. It never rang. Letters came instead. From strangers. A woman in Florida whose son had stolen her retirement. A man in Ohio whose daughter forged checks. A grandmother in Texas whose grandson emptied her accounts. All of them thanking Maggie for speaking up, for making them feel less alone. Maggie responded to every letter, told them about Patricia Walsh's firm, about elder law protections, about the importance of boundaries. She became accidentally famous in the elder rights community, was invited to speak at conferences, declined them all. "I'm not a spokesperson," she told the organizers. "I'm just a mom who learned too late." Then Thanksgiving rolled around. Maggie prepared dinner for 1. Turkey breast, because a whole turkey was ridiculous for 1 person. Mashed potatoes, green beans, David's favorite cornbread. She set 1 place at her table and cried into her cranberry sauce. The doorbell rang at 3 p.m. Maggie almost didn't answer. Probably Jehovah's Witnesses or a neighbor with a casserole. But she opened the door, and there was Jessica. Jessica looked different. No makeup, hair in a ponytail, her natural color, no extensions. Wearing jeans and a Walmart sweatshirt. She'd lost weight, but not the influencer kind. The stress kind. She stood on Maggie's porch holding a pie from Safeway, $7.99. Maggie recognized the label, and crying. "Hi, Mom," she whispered. Maggie's hand gripped the doorframe. "What are you doing here?" I didn't know where else to go. "Jessica, I'm not here for money." Jessica's voice cracked. "I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here because it's Thanksgiving, and I didn't want you to be alone." Maggie's throat closed. "How did you find me?" "Patricia Walsh. I called her last month, asked if you were okay. She said you were in Montana. Gave me your address." Jessica wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I drove 22 hours. My car broke down in Wyoming. I fixed it myself. Well, some guy at a gas station helped me, but I paid him with the $40 I had left." Maggie looked at her daughter. Really looked. Her nails were unpainted, chipped. Her hands looked rougher. There was a grease stain on her jeans. "Tell me what happened," Maggie said. Not an invitation inside, just a demand. Jessica set the pie on the porch railing, took a breath. "I lost everything. The apartment, couldn't pay rent without Brandon's half. My followers, they left after the documentary. Brands dropped me. I filed for bankruptcy." She laughed wetly. "You know what the lawyer said? He said I was the poster child for lifestyle debt. Made me a cautionary tale in his practice. Where are you living?" "Kyle's couch. He and his wife let me stay there while I get back on my feet." Jessica met her eyes. "I work at Target, Mom. 3rd shift, stocking shelves, $9.50 an hour." Maggie's heart twisted. "Jessica, let me finish, please." Jessica's voice was raw. "I'm in therapy. Court mandated it first for the fraud charge." "You were charged?" "Probation, 3 years, the forged loan reference." Jessica swallowed hard. "But I kept going to therapy even after the court didn't require it anymore, because I needed to understand how I got here, how I became that person. And I'm learning that I spent 28 years believing love was measured in dollars, that if you loved me, you'd buy me things, that if I was worth something, I'd have expensive things. And Her voice broke. "I became so obsessed with looking valuable that I forgot to actually be valuable." Wind blew across the Montana plains, cold, sharp. "I don't know who I was, Mom. I look at those Instagram posts, those videos. I don't recognize myself. I became everything Dad would have hated." Maggie's eyes burned. "What was your father's favorite meal?" Jessica blinked. "What?" "Simple question. What was it?" Jessica's face crumpled. I don't remember. I never paid attention. I was always too busy counting calories or worried about bloating for photos or..." She covered her face. "I don't remember." "Beef stew with cornbread," Maggie said quietly. "He asked for it every birthday. 35 years. You never joined us. Said cornbread was too many carbs. I'm sorry." "You want to know the real cost of everything, Jessica? It's not $350,000. It's that you spent so much time curating a perfect life online that you forgot to live a real one. You don't remember your father's favorite meal because you were never present." Jessica nodded, tears streaming. I know, and I can't get it back. I can't get him back. I can't undo what I did to you. I wanted you to know I'm trying. I'm paying off the debt. $100 a month, it'll take 12 years. I deleted all social media. I stopped pretending." Maggie stood in her doorway, looking at her daughter. The old Maggie would have invited her in immediately, would have fed her, comforted her, made it all better. But the new Maggie had learned something. "Why are you really here, Jessica?" "I told you. The truth." Jessica's shoulders shook. "Because I'm terrified. I'm 28 years old and I don't know who I am without followers or brand deals or the approval of strangers. I work a job I hate. I live on a couch. I eat ramen for dinner. And I'm scared that this is all I'll ever be now. That I ruined my life so badly I can't fix it. And you want me to tell you it'll be okay. Jessica looked up. "I want to know if you still love me." There it was, the real question. Maggie thought about David, about 31 years of marriage, about the dollhouse he'd built when Jessica was 7, spending 3 months in the basement after work, sanding every tiny window frame by hand, about how Jessica had played with it twice. "I never stopped loving you," Maggie said, "but I had to stop enabling you. Love and boundaries aren't opposites, Jessica. They're the same thing. So what do I do now?" "You figure it out." Maggie's voice was firm. "You keep working at Target. You keep going to therapy. You keep paying off your debt. You stop looking for someone else to rescue you." Jessica nodded, wiping her face. Okay, I can do that. She picked up the pie, started to turn away. Jessica, she turned back. It's beef stew and cornbread for Thanksgiving. Your father's recipe. You want to help me make it? Jessica's face transformed. Hope, tentative and fragile. Really? But you're doing the dishes. I can do that. And we're not talking about money or your job or my health. We're just making dinner. Okay? Jessica smiled. Small, real, the first genuine smile Maggie had seen in years. Okay? Maggie stepped aside. Let her daughter in. In the kitchen, Jessica's hands shook as she chopped carrots. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. I've never cooked anything from scratch. Then it's time you learned. They worked in silence. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind of quiet that comes from focus. Maggie showed her how to brown the meat, how to layer flavors, how to taste and adjust. Dad taught you this? Jessica asked. Your grandmother taught him. Her mother taught her. It's a family recipe going back 4 generations. I didn't know that. You never asked. Jessica stopped chopping. I never asked about a lot of things, did I? Maggie looked at her daughter's hands. They were rougher now, a callus forming on her thumb, nails short and practical. No, Maggie said gently. You didn't, but you're asking now. While the stew simmered, they made cornbread. Jessica measured wrong 3 times. Too much flour, forgot the salt, mixed too vigorously. Maggie corrected her patiently, like teaching a child, which Maggie realized she was. They sat down to dinner at 6 p.m. 2 plates, 2 glasses of water. No wine, no fancy table settings. Just food. Jessica took a bite of stew, her eyes closed. This is really good, Mom. Your father's recipe. I wish I'd... Jessica set down her fork. I wish I'd paid attention when I had the chance. Me too. They ate in silence. Then Jessica said, What are you going to do with the money? The settlement? The house sale? That's none of your business. Jessica flinched. You're right. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. But I'll tell you anyway. Maggie wiped her mouth. I'm setting up a scholarship fund, the David Thompson Foundation, for first-generation college students pursuing trade skills, carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, the jobs your father believed in. That's beautiful, Mom. And a grant program for people recovering from financial fraud, helping them get back on their feet. Jessica's eyes filled. Because of me. Because of lots of people like you. People who made mistakes and need a second chance. How much are you keeping for yourself? Enough. More than enough. Maggie looked at her daughter. I don't need much, Jessica. I never did. That's something you're going to have to learn. Jessica nodded. Will you teach me? Teach you what? How to live with less. How to be happy without all the stuff. Maggie reached across the table, took Jessica's rough hand in her weathered one. That's not something I can teach you in one dinner. That's going to take time. I have time. If you'll let me. Maggie squeezed her hand. Sunday dinners, 6 p.m. You call me. We talk. About life, about Dad, about anything except money. I can do that. And you keep working. Keep paying off your debt. Keep building a real life. Okay. And Jessica? Yeah? If you ever use my name for fraud again, I'll let them send you to prison. Do you understand? Jessica's throat bobbed. I understand. Good. They finished dinner. Jessica did the dishes, slowly, carefully, breaking only 1 glass. Maggie swept the floor, like 2 normal people on a normal Thanksgiving. At 9 p.m., Jessica hugged her. Thank you, Mom. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. Maggie pulled back, looked at her daughter. I'll never give up on you, but I won't enable you either. You understand the difference now. I'm learning. That's all I ask. Jessica drove away in her 2012 Honda Civic, the one that had broken down in Wyoming. Maggie watched the taillights disappear into Montana darkness. She went inside, cleaned the kitchen, put away leftovers. Her phone rang at 10 p.m. Jessica, text message. Made it to the hotel. $45 per night place in Idaho. It's gross, but it's clean. Thank you for today. I love you. Maggie texted back. Love you too. Drive safe tomorrow. Call me when you get home. And for the first time in 8 months, Maggie went to bed without crying. 2 years later, Maggie's garden in Montana exploded with tomatoes, zucchini, and herbs she didn't know how to pronounce but grew anyway. Her cancer was in remission. Not gone, never truly gone, but quiet. She taught literacy classes 3 days a week, had coffee with her book club on Thursdays, attended her support group on Tuesdays. Every Sunday at 6 p.m., Jessica called. Sometimes they talked for 10 minutes. sometimes for 2 hours. They talked about Jessica's job. She'd been promoted to team lead at Target, $42,000 a year. About her tiny studio apartment in Malden. About her therapy sessions. They didn't always talk about the past. Mostly they talked about the present. About Jessica learning to cook. About the debt she was slowly paying down. $47,000 left, nearly halfway there. About the financial literacy class she'd started volunteering for, teaching teenagers about credit cards. "Guess who reached out?" Jessica said one Sunday. "Kyle's wife. She wants me to speak at her church youth group about social media and debt." "Are you going to do it?" "I think so. It's scary, though, admitting all my mistakes to a bunch of kids." "That's called growth, honey. Or humiliation. Sometimes they're the same thing." Jessica laughed. It sounded real. In late summer, Jessica drove to Montana, stayed for a week. They planted fall vegetables together, their hands in the soil, working side by side. "You know what's weird?" Jessica said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I'm happier now than I ever was with 300,000 followers. Why do you think that is?" "Because I'm not performing anymore. I'm just living." Maggie smiled. "Took you long enough. Better late than never." Better late than never. On Jessica's last night, they made beef stew and cornbread. Jessica did it mostly by herself this time, only asking for help. Once. They ate on Maggie's back porch, watching the Montana sunset paint the mountains gold. "Mom?" Jessica's voice was quiet. "Do you think Dad would be proud of me now?" Maggie thought about David, about the letter he'd left, about how he'd seen this coming and tried to warn her. "I think he'd be proud that you fell, and got back up, and learned to stand without anyone holding you. Even if it took losing everything, especially then." Jessica nodded, wiped her eyes. "I miss him." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared and stars emerged, brilliant and countless in the Montana sky. People asked Maggie sometimes if she regretted it, regretted saying no, regretted the documentary, regretted the pain she'd caused her daughter. Her answer was always the same. "Pain is the only teacher some students listen to. My daughter needed to lose everything to find out what actually mattered. And me? I needed to lose a daughter to gain one back." The house in Portland was gone. The money was mostly gone, given to scholarships, grants, and her own simple life. David was gone, and with him the guilt of failing to teach the lessons he'd tried to share. But sitting on her porch with her daughter, eating stew made from a 4-generation recipe, watching stars emerge in a Montana sky, Maggie had finally learned the difference between the price of something and its value. And she'd taught Jessica the same lesson. It only cost her everything to do it. But some lessons are worth the price.